This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, in the previous class, we have seen data science life cycle, one response I got. And also we have seen data science or data analysis related libraries. Out of those, we can discuss about NumPy, right? And in the NumPy, we have seen creating different types of multidimensional arrays. And also we have seen the different methods or the different inbuilt methods to creating arrays. What was the methods we have seen? What was the methods we have seen to creating arrays? Yeah, default method is array, numpy.array. And what else, what about rest of them? Apart from array, we have seen some other methods also to creating arrays. What was those? Yeah, one is ones and zeros and log space and len space. And also we have seen arrange method, right? Yeah. And if you want to convert any kind of one dimension array into some other dimension, you can do a reshaping, right? So with the help of reshaping, you can convert any dimension into some other dimensions. And we have seen how to convert a multi-dimension arrays into single dimension. Okay. So if you want to convert it, you can use a method flatten. Yes. You can use a method that is called flatten so that you can convert multi-dimension arrays into single dimension array. And we have seen one library which can one method and which is more important in NumPy. So that is random. So what is the purpose of random? So the name itself, it can generate a random numbers. So if you want to generate a random integers, you can use randint. That is the method. And also we have some other methods inside the random, that is rand and also randian. We have already seen all these in yesterday's class. Okay, when it is rand, it will generate the values in between 0 to 1, means it can take the values or it can generate the values by uniform distance. Okay, so and if it is a rand n, it can take it distribute the values based on standard distributions. So standard distribution means it takes some kind of mean values. Okay, there is a possibility. Okay, so there you can get a kind of positive as well as negative values also. So like that you can use all the inbuilt methods. And today we will see the rest of methods or the rest of concepts which we have mostly used in NumPy. So for that you need to start your Jupyter servers and try to create a new folder for today. Today about day 21 and the topic is NumPy continuation. So after creating a folder, try to open that folder and try to start new Python 3 notebook here. And rename the file. Rename it, the file name as, so today also NumPy continuation. Okay, today agenda is, let's make it here, today agenda. So today agenda is indexing. So how to calculate the index in NumPy, and also we have next we will see the filtering, and next we will see statistics of NumPy, and next we will see how to save an NumPy array and how can you use it after saving. Okay, so these are all the topics we are going to see in it. Okay, so try to convert this cell into markdown. And the first one we will so indexing is nothing but whenever you want to access a kind of elements from the iterators, you can use any kind of methods like indexing or slicing, and also you can use looping. So we have already mentioned in the yesterday. So at the end of the session, we are already seeing the steps we have to accessing the elements. The first one is indexing, and the second one is slicing, and the third one is looping. So I'm just copying this context from previous class. Okay, let's see one by one how to access the elements. So for that, I'm just creating two arrays, which is one dimension, and that one is two dimension. So for that, I'm just taking one variable, that is x1. So with respect to x1, I'm just creating one dimension array. For that, you need to import numpy first of all, right? So try to import it, import numpy as npy, and then you can create an arrays by passing a variable name. Here I'm just taking x1 is my variable to create a one dimension array, so that I can use np dot array of, here you can mention the data, whatever the data you want to create. So I'm just passing some kind of data, and here I'm going to create a multi-dimension array, that is two dimension array. So for that I'm just taking x2 is my variable, so x2 equals to np dot array of, there you can mention two dimension arrays. So inside the single dimension array, again we have one dimension array, so that it can be generated a two dimension array. Now I'm going to pass elements here. If you want to pass more elements, you can separate it by comma. So for better understanding, I'm just taking in new values, and length of the element should be same in any dimension. Otherwise, it will generate a individual list formats. Now I'm going to print x1, print x2. So at the initial time, it takes some time to generate the array. So now you can see so it will generate the array. So for better understanding, I'm just mentioning some codes as well in the printing statements. Now you can see in the x1 we have one dimension array with the elements of 1, 2, 5 and 66. And in the x2 we have two dimension array with the elements of 11, 22, 3 and 4, 5, 44. Okay. So if you want to confirm it as a dimension, you can use ending method. Okay, so that you will get clarity. So with respect to these, by using these two x1 and x2 arrays, we are going to access the elements. So now let's see how to access the elements from one array. Okay, so initially I have x1 like this, so it is having some kind of four elements, those are 1, 2, 5 and 66, and you are already aware about that, right? So indexing may be a kind of possibilities like positive and negative. Whenever you want to access a single element, you can simply use indexing. Like index can start from what is the initial value of index? Index can start from what value? Yeah, the default index can start from 0, and that index also again positive and negative. When if you want to access the elements by negatively or negative index, you can use the index starting range, right? So what is the negative index starting range? So when it is a positive, it can start from 0, and if it is a negative means it can start from -1. Now let's see how to access the single element from this x1 array. So for that I'm just using, if I want to access the first element, so that the first element is nothing but it can starts with the index of 0. Okay, now I'm so if I pass x1 of 0, you can get that first element in the x1 array. And if you want to access the last element, you can use -1 as an index. Okay, so this is for getting or access the first element from x1 array. Okay, access the first element from the x1 array, and this is for accessing the last element, from the x1 array. And this negative, so if you want to get this 66 element from the x1 array, you can use positive index also. So what is the positive index range for this 66 value? Yeah, 3. You can access this last element with respect to positive index as well as negative index, but you need to focus on the question statement. If I ask you like access the last element means instead of using positive index, you can just use negative index. That will more accurate. Okay, so it's up to you, but you need to understand the problem statement. Then only you can use it. Okay, so this is about accessing the elements. If you want to access a single element, you can use indexing. And what if I want to access multiple elements at a time? So what if you want to access multiple elements at a time? What is the how can you access it? Nothing but from this x1 array, I need to access this first element as well as last element. So in that case, I need to get two elements at a time. In that case, you can use slicing is a method. So now you might already aware about this slicing, right? Accessing the elements with respect to strings as well as list. So you need to tell me how I can get this first element. That means 1 and 66 at a time from this x1 array. In that case, you need to specify the values. So like if you want to access it like x1 of 0, you can get the first element, as well as if you pass it like a slicing, when you want to get the elements multiple, you need to specify slicing. So the slicing can be separated like colon. So there you need to mention that value. So here the value is mention -1. Let's see. So it will generate the value. So x of 0 is nothing but 1. X of 1, 2, 3. In that case, you need to pass the step value, right? So the step value is 3. When you pass the step value as 3, then you will get first element as well as last element. So that means here we are passing the step value as 3. Defaultly, the step value is 1. So defaultly, the step value is 1. So that's why whenever you want to increase the step count, you can increase the step count whatever you want. So if I access the 66 element as well as first element, you can use the step value as 3. Then only it will generate the first value, and it will iterate the loop. That means it will increase the step value. That means it will remove the rest of 3 values in between that, so that you will get 66. So based on step value, we'll generate the values. So now, yeah, this is about accessing the elements by using indexing and slicing. If you want to access it more, you can use it. Now, let's access this first element as well as this 5 element. If I want to get the 1 and 5 elements from my x1 array, how can I get that? Let me know in the chat box. So I want to get that 1 and 5 from my x1 array. How can I get that? Yeah, you need to increase the step count as 2. Then only you will get 1 as the initial result, and then it can negotiate the first index value, and then the rest of value will get, because we are passing the step value as 2. Colon 2. That means it will include the start value. So 0 index can be included, and then the step is increased to 2. That means it will negotiate the first index. So the first index value is 2. That is going to be negotiated because we are passing the step value as 2. Then you will get the 1 and 5 from the given x1 array. Now let's see, we have a x2 array like this. It is in a 2-dimensional array. Now if I want to access, so when it comes to 2-dimensional array, it having rows and columns, right? When it is like a single dimension, it has only single row, then it is simply look like a list. You can access it whatever you want. But when it comes to two-dimensional array, you should understand it is a kind of format like rows and columns. So rows and columns, when it is like rows and columns, you need to know how to access it. So in that case, how can you access it means the every row can be accessible like 0. So here also rows index can starts from 0 and columns index also can starts from 0. Now if you see, if I want to get the 0th row, so what is the 0th row means the first row can be called as a 0th row because the index can starts from 0. Okay, here the first row is nothing but 0th row, 0th index row. So 0th index row is nothing but 11, 22 and 3. If I want to get that first index, first row, then I can use x2 of 0. Then you will get that 0th index row. That means the index can start from 0. So that's why you will get the first row, that is 11, 22 and 3. Now if you want to get only your first column, that means the first column value is 11 and 4. So here if you want to get that first column row or first column values, those are 11 and 4, you need to separate them. Here you can mention it like x2 of colon 0. Now you can separate that. So this column stands for 0. This column stands for rows. How can you get that columns means by including all rows only you will get the columns. By including all row values, then only you will get the column values. So for including all row values, you can pass this colon. So this colon stands for it will include the all rows. So now let's see, if you want to confirm it, you can mention it like this. Whenever you pass x2 colon means it will generate all rows. That means it will generate entire row. So now after that, I want to get only 0th column, that is 11 and 4. In that case, you need to separate the row and column by comma. While slicing, you can separate the rows and columns by comma. For that, you can separate, you can pass a comma. After that, you can mention the column name, whatever you want. If I pass 0 means it will generate the 0th index column. Now you can see we'll get the result 11, 4. This 11, 4 is our first column, 0th index column. Like this, you will get the you can access the data from two-dimensional array. So whenever you want to access a single value, you can access it. So like this, and whenever you want to access the entire columns with respect to column index, you can access it like this. And out of the columns and out of the rows, if you want to access any particular element, like whenever I pass x2 of 0 means it will generate the 0th index row. So 0th index row. So out of this 0th index row, I want to get this third element. I want to get this third element means I need to specify that particular element index. In that case, you can mention it like, so first of all, you need to get that row. So for getting that row, you can use x2 of 0. That means we will get that entire row. Out of this row elements, we want to get this only third element. That means this 11 can be starts from index of 0 and 22 is in the position of 1 and this 3 in the position of 2. So in that case, you need to mention that element index position. So that the third element having the index position is 2. Then you will access that particular element as well. Okay, like this you can access a single element as well as group of elements by slicing it. Okay, am I clear, students, how to access the elements from two-dimensional arrays? Because it is very important. When you have a huge data, out of those huge data, we need to access a particular elements only, particular rows only, or particular columns only. In that case, you need to know how to access it. So it is very important. Try to understand. If you want to explain again, just let me know. How can I'm going to access, I'm going to tell you again how can you access second column. Yeah, somebody asked me to explain about accessing second column. So for accessing second column, so second column is nothing but we have 22 and 5. These can be called as a first index column. In that case, you can mention 1. If I mention 1, now you will get that second column value. See, 22 comma 5. So make sure that before that you need to specify that all rows can be included, because with respect to including of all rows only we can access the columns. So this is mandatory accessing. So instead of placing colon also you can mention 0 colon. That is also same. It will include the 0th index row up to the length of the row. When you pass 0 colon also it will include the 0th index row up to the length of rows. Instead of that you can use colon as well. Both are same. Okay, now let's see some other. So I have x2 row like this, and out of this I need to get this 22, 3, 5 and 44. That means I want to get the columns, that is first column and last column. I want to get the first column and last column. Okay, let's make it simple. First of all, we need to get this first column and second column. Now let's see how to access it. For that, you need to include the all rows first. So for that, including all rows, we can use colon, comma. So this colon represents all rows. And after the comma, whatever you mentioned, that is point out the columns values. Okay. So after this, I need to include the 0th column as well as start value should be 0 and the end value is 2. Then it will generate the 0th column as well as first column. And if you see here, I'm just mentioning end value as 2 because end value should be excluded. It's not going to be included. So to include that first column also, I need to mention one more value. That's why I'm passing end value as 2. End value as 2. Then I will get 0th column as well as first column. Okay, like this you can exit. Now, if I want to get the first column and second column, how can I get that? Let me know the responses in the chat box. Okay, if I want to access the first column as well as third column, in that case you can use this so we need to start the start value from 1 and end value should be 3. Now we will get this first column and second column. Okay, you can pass any kind of values. It's up to you, but the result should be we need to get the first column and second column. So for first column, the index is 1 and second column means we need to pass one more index because end value should be excluded. So that you will include that first column, the second column as well. Now you will get that second column and first column as a result. Now if I want to get that first column and last column, I don't want this middle column. So that means I want to get 11, 4 and 3, 44 as my result. In that case, how to access it, the elements? X2 of, first of all, we need to include the all columns. So to include the all columns, you can specify colon, comma, and then we need to include the 0th column and we want to include this last column and we don't want this first column in between middle, we don't want that middle column. That means we want to get the first column and last column. In that case, how can you access it? You need to pass a step value, right? So defaultly the step value should be 1 so that it will get 1 by 1. If I pass 0 colon colon 2, let's see, then you will get the first column and last column as result. First column and last column as result. Am I clear, students, accessing the elements? Okay. Let's see accessing the elements with for loop also. So if you want to access the elements, you can use for loop, and we already know how to access the elements with the help of for loop. Let's see if I in x2 print I, then it will generate every value one by one, and it will generate like an array, so that you will get entire array. Okay, now let's see accessing the elements in three-dimensional array. For that, I'm going to create one x3, one variable that is x3, and I'm going to create np.array of, and inside the single big array, I have again two-dimensional arrays. So here I can mention the values like 1, 2, 3, and again like 5, 6, 7. Again, I have one more list with having 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 77. Now I'm going to print this x3. So it is a three-dimension array. Now if I want to access the first row, if I want to access this first row, that is 1, 2, 3, how can I access it? What is the index we have to pass here? If I pass x3 of 0, what it will gives you? It will gives you the entire array. When I pass x3 of 0, it will gives you the entire array, because in three-dimensional array it having dimensions like x, y, z. So that means inside the single big array, again we have two-dimension arrays. Again we have two-dimension arrays inside that. That means inside the single dimension array means it having the default index is 0. It having the default index is 0. So when you mention x3 of 0 means it will get entire row. So out of this, I want to get the 0th index row. Then you can mention x3 of 0, 0. Then that will gives you that 0 array, 0th array, 0 index array. So if I want to get the 0 column means again you can mention 0. Then it will generate. So out of this, it will generate in the 0th index array, it will generate the 0th index value. It's not about column. Okay. So like this, you can get the 0th index. 0th index row. So if you want to get the 0th index array out of three-dimension array, you can use the default index should be 0. So if you change this index out of 1, you will get error. What is this error? You can observe here once. So the index 1 is out of bounds for axis 0 with size 1. Because this three-dimension array means it should have only inside the single dimension, it have two dimensions. So single dimension means it is having index with only 0. It should be starts with index 0. That's why you need to specify 0 only as per three-dimension arrays. If you pass any other value other than 0, it will get error like index error out of bond, index out of bond errors, because so it is having only fixed like 0. Now if I want to access columns, so here also you can mention like 0 column. So in this for accessing of three-dimension array in by using slicing, you need to specify like 3 columns, because we have totally 3 dimension, x dimension, y dimension, and z dimension. So that you need to specify 3 columns to separate this. So when you mention like this, it will include the all rows, and out of those you need, if you want to get only 0th row, you can mention 0. Then it will get the 0th row, and out of this you want to include that first 1 by 1 rows also, you can mention again like this. It is also include all rows. So this first 0 indicates the x dimension, this second 0 indicates the y dimension. So that means inside the single two-dimension array, if you want to include how many rows, you can specify it. If I mention 0 means it will include the all rows 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 77, 8, 9 as well. So out of this, and I want to get only 0th column means you need to mention 0. Then it will generate only 0 column. So the 0 column values is 1577. This is about accessing zeroth index column. To access the zeroth index column, you can specify it like this is about getting three dimension x dimension, and this is about including all rows again, and this is about including or getting zeroth index column. Okay, is this clear to all? Because it is very important to understand how to access the three dimension arrays. So in this case, the first dimension should only 0. And you can mention the rest of parameters like as a two-dimension array. Like as a two-dimension array, you can specify it this two. And this 0 should be fixed for three dimension, because inside the single dimension we have again two dimensions. So it is index can start from 0. So it is a mandatory should 0. And this 2 is similar to our two-dimension arrays. So this 0 is for accessing rows and this 0 is for accessing columns. Am I clear to all? Accessing the three-dimensional elements. So now let's see if I want to access zeroth row and zeroth row and first row. In that case, you need to specify the 0 colon. So this is about including the third dimension, and here you can mention the second dimension value. In that I need to include zeroth row and first row, so that I can mention here is 2. Step value as 2. Then you can see it will generate the zeroth row, and so step value is 1. There is no need to specify the step value because it is defaultly 1, and you need to pass the start value and stop value. Here the start value is 0 and stop value is 2, so that the 1 also included. Then you will get the zeroth row and first row. Now if you want to get the first row and last row, you can use step value as 2. Then you will get first row and last row as a result. Likewise, if you want to get the columns, first column and last column, so in this case you need to include the all rows as well, and this is so this is to getting the first column and second column. And if you want to get first column and last column, you can give 0 colon colon 2 in the column session. Then you will get first column and last column as result. Like this, you can access the elements in three-dimension arrays. Am I clear up to this? All of you, respond me in the chat box. What about rest of them? Now I have a three-dimension array like this, and out of this three-dimension array, I want to get this 7 element. I want to get this 7 element from this three-dimension array. How can you get it? And let me know your responses in the chat box. You can send me your responses. I want to get this 7 element from my X3 array. How can I get it? try it and post your responses in the chat box. Yeah, I got one response from Pranit. Got one response from Pranit like this: x3 of 0. 0 colon means it is about including all rows. Again, out of this 1 comma 2. Yeah. So this one is including the first column, first row, and this 2 is getting the second element from the first row. Now let's see. Yeah, you will get that 7 element. You can use any kind of format. When you pass like this, it will generate element like an array format, list format. And if you want to get only element, you can use a separate kind of index. Okay, so like this you can access the elements. That's it about accessing the element. So we are seeing how to access the elements by using indexing and slicing and also looping. Right. Now let's see the next concept. Next concept after indexing, we are going to see filtering. So that means we are getting a huge data from a real world or environment. Out of the data, we need to filter the data whatever we want. Okay, in that case, you should know how to. Okay, somebody asked me how to access first row and last row. We already tell you that, right? So accessing first row and last row. In that case, you can represent like this. So this 0 is including all rows, and this 0 is including the first row, and step value is here. The step value is 2. 0 colon colon 2. That means it will include the 0th row, that means first row and last row. Then you will get first row and last row. In that case, you can also use -1. If you use -1, it will generate only first row. Better to use this syntax only. Okay, this is the way you can access 0th row. That means first row and last row. Okay, 0 colon colon 2. 0th row to including the 0th row, and the step value is 2. So that you will get last row. Because we have totally 3 rows. That's why I'm passing 2 as step count. Then it will generate last row. Yeah, the next topic is filtering. So because we are getting data from environment like a huge data. Out of those data, we need to filter whatever we want. So for that, you should know how to filtering. And for filtering, we have some kind of techniques to do that. So to get important data or important features, we need to filter the data. Okay, let's take one array. So with respect to that one array only, we're going to filter the data. So we have x1 array already. We have already x1 array. So in the x1 array, we have 4 elements. So in this, I'm going to filter the data. That means out of the x1 array, okay, let's try to create a new array. So for that, I'm just taking a is my variable to create an array. So Okay, so in the A, I need to take a random values, or you can take any kind of values to generate arrays. Any kind of methods to generate arrays. I'm using arrange method to generate an array. np.arrange. Here I'm passing the data from 1 to 50. Now let's see the A. So it will generate the values from 1 to 50 with having one step value. So it's not generating any step value. It defaultly generating the values from 1 to 50. So it is like a kind of single dimension array. It is a kind of single dimension array. So if you want to reshape it into any other formats, you can reshape it. I don't want to reshape this array. I'm just fine with that. And now out of these 1 to 50 values, I need to filter my data. So that means I need to filter the elements which is divisible by 2. That means out of this array elements, I need to filter the elements which element is divisible by 2 only. So for that, we should do some kind of filtering techniques. So if I want to filter the data, if I want to filter the elements which are divisible by 2, then how can you filter it? We need to access the elements, and we need to filter the every element which is equal or which is divisible by 2. That means if simply if you want to get the even elements, even number elements out of this given array, how can you do that? You can simply pass like a percentile 2 is equals to 0. Then it will gives you like a kind of true or false statement. That means whatever the element is divisible by 2, in that case that will generate a boolean result as true. If it is not divisible by 2, it will generate a boolean result as false. And so instead of getting this false and true and false, I need to get the elements only. So I need to get the elements. That means whenever I have a true result, I need to get that element because it is divisible by 2. So in that case, you just give some kind of filtering like a of a percentile 2 is equals to 0. That means we are applying some kind of filtering technique. So with respect to this, it will generate a true and false. But if you want to get the element along with that corresponding true result, you can use a of a percentile equals to 2. Then it will generate the elements. Now you can see all the even number elements in the given A array. Like that, you can filter your data with respect to your given data. So we are getting huge data from the environment. Out of the huge data, if you want to filter any data with your aspect, you can do a kind of filtering techniques like this. So initially, I'm just generating a random array with arrange method. And out of those array elements, I need to get the elements which are equal to or which are divisible by 2. In that case, I'm applying some kind of technique like a percentile is equals to 0. Then it will generate a boolean result. And out of those, I want to get the elements which is equal to the result is equal to true. Then I can use a of a percentile 2 is equals to 0. Then it will generate the numbers. Okay, am I clear, students? Filtering the arrays. See, everything in the data science project or ML project is like a rows and columns only. Rows and columns means it is a kind of format related to arrays. So the data should be in the format of array only. No need to worry about that. So the data should be in the format of array so that you can easily filter it. If you have some other format data means you need to convert the data into the format of arrays like rows and columns. Then only we can figure out the data. So it's mandatory to take the data in the format of arrays like rows and columns. Yeah, what we are doing means if you want to filter any kind of data, we need to do some we need to apply our logic. That means here if I generate I got one array with having 1 to 50 elements. Out of the 50 elements array, I need to get the elements which are divisible by 2 only, so that I can apply a filtering technique like a percentile 2. So in that a I having totally 50 elements, so it will generate a result like true or false. When it is false means the element in that zeroth position should not divisible by 2. That's why I'm getting the result as false. And here I have a 2 element and it is divisible by 2. That's why it gives you as a result as true. And instead of getting this true and false, I want to get the data which is equal to true. Then I can apply a of a percentile 2. This can be called as a functional mapping. This technique can be called as a functional mapping, and this is very important. To filter anything, you can use a square bracket along with the main data. Then it will filter the data out of the main data. And this technique also called as a functional mapping. So this kind of scenarios we have seen mostly in real-time scenarios. So like if you have a data set, we have a real-time scenarios like I have a let's take your marks. So in that your marks, yeah, you have a subjects like 3 m1 m2 m3, and out of the m1 m2 m3 you should know which marks are higher. That means I want to filter the marks of m1 which is greater than 35. So I have a totally 60 students of data with the marks of m1 m2 m3. Out of the 60 students data, I want to filter the marks who are gaining more than 35 or who are gaining more than 70 in the subject of M1. So in that case, we need to filter the data, right? So if you in that case, you should know how to filter it. So like this, you can filter it. First of all, you need to access the M1 column data, entire M1 column data, and in that entire M1 column data, you should know you have to apply a logic like the mark should be greater than 70. Then it will returns whenever the result is greater than 70, it will returns true. So instead of getting true or false, you need to get the result. That means you need to get the numbers only, means you can apply a functional mapping like m1 of again m1 greater than 70. In that case, you will get only the marks which is greater than 70 only. Like that, you can filter the data based on your application. Now it's clear to all how the filtering can be happen. Let me know in the chat box. Yeah, sorry. Now it's audible. Am I audible, students, now? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have a array like this. Out of this A array, I want to filter the numbers, or I want to filter my array of elements which is more greater than 25. So in that case, I will get the result like 25 to 50 elements, because I need to filter the data which is greater than 25. So in that case, I can apply like A greater than 25. Or if you want to include this 25, you can use equal to. Then it will return the result like Boolean result. Whenever you have a result greater than 25 or equal to 25, then that will gives you result as true. If it is not satisfied with the condition, it will returns the result as false. So instead of getting this false and trues, you want to filter the elements. You want to reflect these changes in your main array. In that case, you can use a of a greater than or equal to 25. Then it will filter the elements which is greater than 25. Like this, you can filter your array. Now you can see these changes should not be affected into your main array. You can understand here. See all the changes, whatever the filtering techniques we have applied, that should not affected, that should not reflected in your main A array, because we are not assigning it entire changes into main array. If you want to assign it, you can assign it, but we don't want to assign it. Every time the main data should be same and we don't change the main data. So we are changing the data with our point of view. For that, you can take some other variables. Okay, instead of changing the main array, you can apply any kind of some other variables to store your changes. Okay, now let's see some other filtering technique. I want to filter the data which is greater than 25 and also which is equal to or which are lesser than 50. So we have already 50 only. Okay, let's apply one condition like a which is greater than 25, as well as I want to get the data which is lesser than 40. Okay, I want to filter the data which is greater than or equal to 25 and also which is lesser than or equal to 40. In that case, you should pass a AND condition, because we need to specify a two conditions. One condition is the data should be is equal to or is greater than or equal to 25, and also data or element should be lesser than or equal to 40. In that case, you should mention two conditions and you need to satisfy that both conditions. So if you want to satisfy the both conditions, what logical operator you should prefer? What kind of logical operator you should prefer to satisfy two conditions? Yeah, we can use logical AND operator. So whenever you have a two or more conditions, you can specify it like a parenthesis. You can separate it or you can specify by parenthesis. And I have in between AND operator, and I have one more condition like the data should be lesser than or equal to 40. Lesser than or equal to 40. Now you can see you will get the data which is greater than or equal to 25 and it is lesser than or equal to 40. And out of this data, you want to filter the data which is divisible by 2, means again you can mention one more condition by separating AND operator like a percentile 2 is equal to 0. That means out of these 25 to 40 numbers, you want to get only even numbers, means you can apply one more condition with the AND gate, that is a percentile is equal to 2. That will gives you only even numbers between 25 to 40. Like this, you can filter data. So if you don't apply these changes like a of means, you will get only true or false. You are already seen that, right? You will get only true or false out of those. And if you want to get a result along with only integer part, like not in a Boolean representation, then you can mention a of. Then it will returns the values only. Am I clear now? Filtering. Filtering is very important. So in the future days, we are working on huge data sets with having so many rows and so many columns. In that, we need to access or we need to filter a second row with respect to having more than 20, means you need to know how to filter it. So try to understand, this is very important. So how to check for multi-dimensional arrays? So so every time so if you have more data also, out of those we need to filtering with one condition only. So that means if you have like if you take So we are already discussing one problem like student marks. So in your class, if you have a 60 students, out of the 60 students, if you want to filter the subjects like M1 and M2, which is greater than 70 marks. Okay, in that case, you need to access that first M1 column and M2 column. That means those are two dimensions. Okay, because when you have a more than one column means it is two dimension. So you need to access that two columns first, and then you can apply the condition. You can apply filtering condition like marks greater than 70, and then you can apply along with entire data set. Then you can filter the multi-dimension arrays as well. We can update the values, ma'am, in the filtering. Yes, we are updating, right? But you cannot update this values in the main array. It is only filtering. If you want to reflect these changes in your entire array, you can update it. But mostly we are not updating this filtering data into main data because it's getting some kind of errors. Okay, we can update the values in a particular kind of variable only. We are not reflect the changes. We are not update these changes into main array because the main data should not be changed at any cost of time. If you change it, entire thing should be changed. Okay. Can we use and in place of and? I'm not getting this question. Bhargav. Can we use and in place of and? Here you see and is kind of operators. Here we are applying logical operators, not and. So you just see again operators or data types in Python. We have so many operators, bitwise operators, logical operators, keyword operators, membership operators. So for logical and normal and, there is a difference. Okay, we are not applying this and gate here. We are applying only logical and. And is will work like if both conditions are true, then it can be taken as a true. Yeah, next we will see. So, and you need to understand this filtering can happen with respect to that particular array only. If you want to filter data in A array, and if you want to update these changes in A2 array means that going to be error. It will raise an error. Like I have a X1 array again. I have already X1 array, and in the X1 array, I want to filter with condition like A greater than 2 is equals to 0 means it will raise an error, value error, because we are filtering the data with respect to A array, and we are updating the filtering data into X1 array. This is not possible, right? So make sure that your filtering should be with respect to same array only. Your filtering data should be uh, appropriate to same array only. Otherwise, it will raise an error. Okay, next we will see what else we have. After the filtering, we have the next topic is statistics. So basically this numpy can be used for statistic functions. So because when you have a huge data, we don't do all the statistic functions by manual. So to negotiate that, we can use this numpy as a technique. So for that, you should know what are the statistic functions in numpy. So let's make a heading as statistics. So for doing statistical problems, we can use this statistic kind of applications in NumPy. Let's convert this cell into Markdown. So statistic functions means like to find out the mean, median, and mode, and also percentage and cumulative sum, and also standard deviation. These are all the statistical functions we have. So now let's see. So with respect to one array, we can going to do all this. So I have one array with x1. So let's see, if you want to get the maximum number out of this x1 array, you can use x1 dot np dot max. So out of x1 dot max, and then you can mention the tag array here. So it will gives you the maximum element out of the given array. Like this, you can generate the minimum array as well, minimum element from the given array. For that, we have a method like min. So it will gives you the minimum element from the given array. And if you want to know the mean, you can use np.mean with respect to that x1 array. It will gives you the mean of that x1 array. And if you have median, if you want to calculate the median, you can mention that np.median of x1. It will calculate the median and it will gives you the result. Again, we have np dot sum. Will gives you the sum of that given elements in the x1 array. So these are all the basic statistical functions we have used. And we have, if you want to calculate the standard deviation, you can use np dot standard. For standard deviation calculation, we have a method like std. So we have a method std to calculate the standard deviation. There you can mention the array. It will gives you the standard deviation of that x1 array. And if you want to calculate the percentage of that x1 array, so we have a method like so percentile, then you can mention x1 array and how much percentage value you want to use. If I want to calculate the 25 percentage of my x1 array, I can use x1 comma 25. Then it will gives you the 25 percentage of that x1 array. Likewise, you can, if you want to calculate the 100%, you can pass percentile comma x1 comma 100. Again, we have, if you want to calculate 75 percentage of x1 array, you can use 75. Percentile will, so if you want to, percentile will do kind of calculation of percentage. So if you want to calculate the 100 percentage of this x1, it will calculate the percentage of that x1 array. So if you want to calculate 75 percentage of your x1 array, you can give that percentile method. You can call that percentile method and you can mention that x1 array and how much percentage you want to get, you can pass it after the array. Then it will generate the result. Percentile will calculate the percentage of that given array out of the percentage. But if you see here, if I want to calculate the 50 percentage, now let's see, 50 percentage of x1 array will gives you 3.5. So backend there is a we have a method. So inside this method, it will automatically calculate that total sum and average into percentage. Then it will gives the result. Okay, these are all the statistical functions we have in NumPy. And next we will see aggregation functions. We have some other aggregation functions also in NumPy. And before that, is it clear to all statistical functions? So to calculate all the statistical functions, we have inbuilt method. You can simply use it instead of typing or instead of doing manually. You can just call the methods and you can use it. Okay. Am I clear, students, about statistical functions? And we have some other aggregation functions in NumPy. For that, I'm using the same X1 array to calculate this aggregation functions also. The aggregation functions is nothing but simply to calculating the sum and product, as well as minimum and maximum is common in statistical and aggregation. And argmax and argument is one new method, and we have to calculate the cumulative sum. These are all the methods we have in aggregations functions. So for that, let's take two-dimension array x2. I have a two-dimension array like this, and out of this, if I want to find out sum, it will give the sum. So x2 dot. So min and max and so in the statistical functions, we have already calculating the min and minimum values and maximum values. There you can mention np dot min of x1. And if you use directly like x1 dot min, that also same. So both will work same. If you can use np dot min of x2, or else you can directly use array dot min or max. Both are same. And here the new method we have seen in the aggregation is argmax and argmin. That means it will tells you with respect to axis. Okay. Now let's see x2 dot argmax. So argmax. So in this argmax will gives you the result as 5. So x2 we have 5 pass x2 dot argument. It will gives you the minimum argument value. But in the x2 we don't have 2, right? Now let's see the description about this. So return the indices of minimum values along with the given axis of A. Okay. So when it argmax will gives you that index position of the maximum value. Okay. Returns index position of element. So we have a maximum value. So before that, I'm going to insert one new cell. Okay. A. So to find out the maximum value, you can use x2 dot max, right? x2 dot max. It will gives you the maximum value. So if you want, when you calculate the maximum value index, so it is in the index of 5. So that means here, if you see, so the index position of this 44 is 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So whenever you want to access the index position of the maximum value, you can use argmax. Okay. So argmin will gives you the same index minimum index position value. Okay. Returns minimum element index value. Sometimes instead of getting maximum value, minimum value, we want to get the index of that maximum and minimum values. In that case, you can use argmax or argmin. So default index can start from 0. So based on that index calculation, it will returns the result. So if you see the minimum value we have here is 4. So the minimum value we have here is 3, not 4. So the index position of the 3 is 2, 0, 1, 2. So that's why when you give argmin, it will generate the result as 2 because the 3 having index is 2. So like that you can use argmin and argmax. And if you want to calculate this cumulative sum, you can use one method like x2 dot sum. It will return the cumulative sum of that given array. So you might already aware about that cumulative sum calculation. So every element should be added to the next element. Like that, it will generate the cumulative sum. And if you want to get the cumulative product, for that also we have a method. cum product. Then it will generate the cumulative product of that given array. Is it following row measurement? So what it is, argmin or argmax? So it is basically following row wise. If you don't mention any kind of axis, it will follow the row wise. So for better understanding, you can see the description window once. So basically everything can be followed by row wise. If you want to specify a column wise, you can use axis equals to 1. But here it's not taken, I think so. Yeah, defaultly axis equals to none. So when it is none means defaultly it takes only row wise. Okay, return indices the minimum values along with the given axis of A. So this will takes the argument will defaultly or anything can defaultly access can takes as a row only. If you want to specify it column wise, let's see. I'm going to insert one more cell x2 dot argument of axis equals to 1. If I take axis equals to 1, let's see what is the result. So it will gives me 2 comma 0. 2 comma 0. I have an x2 like this. If I give the 2 position, we have 3. Yeah, so when you pass axis equals to 0 means axis equals to 1 means it will tells you minimum element index position by column wise. If you see in the here in the first column in the first row, it will give you as row. If I pass 0 1 1 0, so 1 1 0 means argument we have a minimum value in the position of 1 and here also 1 and here. Yeah, when you want to get the column wise minimum values, you can use axis equals to 0. Axis equals to 0 means it will generate the minimum value with respect to column. So that means if you observe in the first column, we have minimum element in the position of 0, in the position of 1, not 0. In the second column, we have a minimum value in the position of 1. And in the third column, we have a minimum element in the position of 0. That's why when you pass argmin axis equals to 0 means it will generate the minimum elements with respect to column. So defaultly, if you won't mention anything, it will not take any kind of axis. So if you want to access the minimum or maximum values with respect to axes, you can mention the axes here. Axis equals to 0 means it will point out the column. Axis equals to 1 means it will point out the rows. x2 dot arg main of, if I mention axis equals to 1, so axis equals to 1 means it will point out the row wise minimum element index positions. Okay, when it comes to row wise, we have a in the second position we have a minimum element, as well as in the second row we have a 0th index value is minimum. That's why you will get 2 comma 0 as a result. Okay, is it clear to all aggregation functions? Am I clear up to this, all of you? So percentile is nothing but if you want to calculate the 50% of that x1 array, you can use 50. So for that, instead of calculating the percentage, you can use percentile method. Where we can done. statistics here. So if you want to get the 50% of 50% of your x1 array, you can use array comma 50. So that it will calculate the 50% of your x1 array automatically, and it will give you the result. So cumulative sum, you should know how the cumulative sum can be happen. So cumulative sum means if you have elements like 1, 2, 3, the cumulative sum at the first step is 1, and this in the next step it can be added like 1 plus 2, and the next step it can be added like 1 plus 2 plus 3. Like that, the cumulative sum can be happen. So same wise the product can happen. If you have a 1, and in the next iteration it can be 1 into 2, and in the next iteration it should be 1 into 2 into 3. It is for cumulative sum, and this is for cumulative product. Everything can be added with the next number. So when if you might aware about that Fibonacci series, I think so. Whenever you want to calculate the Fibonacci series, you should know this cumulative sum. I think so. Just go through and verify it in Google so that you will get more clarity. How it is giving single value. Yes, when you want to calculate the percentage of your marks, it will finally generate only single value, right? Out of it will take entire marks, entire subject marks, and finally it will gives only single digit value only. So same thing is happened here. It will take every value, and it will calculate the every value sum, and it will calculate the average, and it will calculate the percentage. So for percentage calculation we have a formula, right? So with respect to that it will calculate. Okay. So after aggregation functions, what we have, let's see. Saving data, how to saving the numpy array, and how can you use it whenever you want. So this is also very important. Saving data. So saving data is very important. So for that we have a one simple method to save your numpy array. Okay, so let's take one variable to create a random array. X equals to random dot random np dot. Okay, I have some random array like this, and I want to save this array, and I can use it whenever I want. So instead of running every time, instead of typing this command any time, you can save this array and you can use it after whenever you want. So for that we have a method to save it, while saving you can use one method like np.save. So save is a method to save any kind of particular array, and there you can mention the array name, on which name you want to save that particular array. So here I'm just mentioning the array name as like x. So we have a name like x only. So in with respect to that same name only, I'm going to save it, and make sure that extension should be .npy, because it is a numpy array, right? So that you can specify that format as x.npy. And then you can mention that which array you want to store with that name. I want to store that x array with the name of x.npy. So it will automatically stores with the name of x.npy this array in your respective location, in the respected location. So if you want to see that, you can just open the today's folder in the day 21. Now you can see here it will automatically save the name with the x.npy. So So is it is completed from your end, saving the data, saving the array, and observing the changes in your respective folder. What about rest of them? Can you able to following or not? Yes, like this you can save your arrays, and then if you want to access it, that means after saving it, at some point of time you want to use it. Okay, so in that case you can use one other method to say to open or to use that saved array. It's showing saving is disabled. That means in your system, Bhargav, I think you have some kind of settings problem. We will see your problem at the end of the session. Don't worry. Okay, now let's see, after saving your respected array, you want to use it at some point. In that case, you need to access it. So for that, we have a method to load that. That is load np.loadoff. Here you can mention the file name, whatever the name you have saved, you have passed while saving. You can mention that name here. The name I have is x.npy. And while loading, if you want to assign any kind of variable, you can assign it. It's up to you. I'm just loading it and displaying it. Now you can see it will display that entire data. It display the entire array. Whatever you saved, that going to be displayed here because we are loading it after saving. Like this, you can save your NumPy array at any cost of time, and you can use it at any cost of time. Am I clear? Is it is done from your end? Okay. Next, we have one thing like NumPy copy and view. This is also very important. NumPy copy and view. Sometimes we need to say we need to copy our entire array, and while copying we don't want to change anything, and if you change main array, the copy array should be changed. So for that we have some kind of scenarios like copy and view. Let's see one by one. So first of all, let's make a clear understanding. So in the copy changes will not affected to the whatever the changes you have made to the main array or sub array, new array, copied array, that will not be affected to the main array, and vice versa. Will not affected to original array. And vice versa. That means if you change the main array also, the copied array also not going to be affected. So this is about copy, and we have some other method like view. So in the view, if you change anything in the main array, that going to be affected in the copied array. And if you change anything in the copied array, that also may be affected in the main array. That can be happen in view method. Changes will be affected to the original array as well as change copied array. That means whenever sometimes we need to copy our original array and we need to paste it in a new array. That means we need to maintain one copy. That copy here we can call as a shallow copy. Copy can be called as a shallow copy and view copy can be called as a deep copy. Okay, so we will see how it can be happen by programmatically so that you can understand. So for that I'm just creating one array to observe all these changes. Let's make it as new import number as np, and I'm just taking one variable to store an array, that is arr np dot to creating array np dot array, and there I can use one kind of a single dimension array with having some 1 2 3 4 elements, and I'm going to copy this array into a new array with x variable. So for copying we have a method like arr dot copy. That means here we have already an array with variable of arr, and we are going to copy this entire array with the new variable, that is x. To copying that we are using dot copy as a method. Dot copy as a method. Now I'm going to print this x as well as array. We are going to print the main array as well as copied array. Now you can see both values are same. Both values are same when it is a copy. The both values are same. And so like this you can copy your any kind of array, and at some point if you want to change anything, that means I in some point I can recognize that I want to add some more value, that or else I want to change any particular index of element. In that case I can change it. So if I change anything, that can be reflected in the main array or not. Let's see. So for that I'm going to change my main array. So our main array is with a variable of arr, and I'm going to add a new element in the index of 0. Okay, that means I'm going to overwrite my 0th index value. So I can use arr of 0, and I can pass some new value like 40. If I pass arr of 0, and after that I'm going to print this after changing before now I'm going to changing the 0th index of array, main array with value of 40. Now you can see is that changes is applicable to copied array or not. Now you can see when I change my new value, it cannot be changed in the copied array. What I'm doing is initially we are going to print whatever we have, and next we will see after changing the value also we are going to print again the x and arr. So initially it's not going to be it is the same values, the main array and the copied array should be same, and after that I'm going to apply or I'm doing some kind of changes in the 0th index value of main array, and when I apply changes in the main array it's not going to be reflected in the copied array. So this type of copy can be called as a shallow copy. This type of copy can be called as a shallow copy. That means whenever you do some kind of changes in any array, that's not going to be reflected in main array or copied array. Here we are changing the main array, but if you want to change in the copied array and if you want to observe the changes also, you can observe it, and the changes should not be affected in one to another. So now let's see if I change x value. So x means our copied array. If I change the x of 0 with value of some 9, now I'm going to print this again arrays. I'm going to print the again arrays. Now you can see copied array only changed. Our copied array only changed with the value of 9, and this 9 should not be reflected in the main array. Okay, copied array only changed. That means whatever we want to change, that particular array only can be changed, and the main array should not be changed. This type of copy can be called as a shallow copy. Okay, am I clear, students, how the copy command can be worked in NumPy arrays? Why we are using copy means in sometimes we need to secure our data. So to secure our data, we need to generate some other copies. Instead of losing our data, we can generate a copies. And if you want to change anything, you can change it, and that changes should not be reflected in the main arrays. This type of copy we can call as a shallow copy. Okay, am I clear, students, how it is happen? Okay, now let's see, we can use some other method like view. With the help of view, we can apply a kind of deep copy. That means if you do any kind of changes, that changes can be reflected in both arrays. So that means if you change main array, the changes can be reflected in copied array as well. So for that, let's take new array with the variable of n1. Here I am going to generate array like. Here also let's take import numpy as np. To creating array, I'm just taking n1 is my variable, np dot array of. Here I'm just taking variable like 1, 2. Let's take new values. Okay, and then I'm just for copying, I'm just taking new variable, that is n2. Okay, n2 equals to n1 dot view. View is also one kind of method to copying an array. So by using this view, we can copy the array. That type of copy can be called as a deep copy. Deep copy. Okay, now I'm going to print this n1 under n2. So n1 is our main array, and this n2 is a copied array. Okay, now you can see both values are same because we are just applying a copy. And after that, after copying it, at some point of time, I will get recognized that I need to change a particular position of element. That means I need to change a kind of data. I need to change some changes. I want to apply some changes in my data so that I can apply changes in main array. And let's see is that changes can be reflected in the copied array or not. So for that, I'm going to apply. I'm just changing the 0 position of that main array value with some 78. Again, I'm going to print this main array and copied array. Now you can see when I change, I'm going to change the main array with the 0th index values of 78. When I change my main array, the corresponding copied array also can be changed with the array value, because it is the view method can be work like that. It is kind of deep copy. That means whatever the changes you have done with main array, that going to be reflected in the copied array as well. This type of copy can be called as a deep copy. And if you do changes in the copied array, and let's observe that changes also can be reflected in the main array or not. So for that, I'm just. So here the copied array is in the variable of n2. And here I'm just changing the 0 position of that n2. And now I'm going to print the main array and copied array as well. Now let's see. Okay, we are passing same value, right? If I pass 72, now you can see when I change when I change my copied array with respect to that copied array, the main array also can be changed, because it is a kind of deep copy. With the help of dot view method, the changes should be reflected in the main as well as copied. If you change any one thing, the corresponding, the main also can be changed. So this type of copy can be called as a deep copy. So in the previous we have seen shallow copy, and here we have seen deep copy. In the shallow copy, the changes should not be reflected with one to another. Once you copied it, the changes cannot be reflected with one to another. And in the view copy or deep copy, the changes can be reflected with one to another once you copied the array. Once you copied the array, the changes can be reflected with one to another. That is the main difference. Okay, am I clear now up to this? Now we have some other method like, we have some other topic like NumPy joining arrays. So for joining arrays, we have one method like whenever you want to add something, you can use concat. Concatenate is one method we have. np dot concatenate. So with this method, you can add any kind of, or you can join any kind of arrays. So let's see how it is happen. So for that, I'm just importing NumPy as np a1 for creating one array, np dot array of. Here I'm passing only single dimension array with having 1, 2, 3, and I have another array with a2 variable, and I'm creating with some values np dot array of 5, 6, 7. Now I want to add these two arrays with concat method. While if you want to join any kind of two arrays, we have a method that is concat. For that, you can use print a1 np dot concat concatenate. There you can mention whatever the arrays you want to concat. Hey, I want to concat a1 and a2 together, so I can pass a1 comma a2. Unexpected EOF. Only integer scalar arrays can be converted to scalar index. Now let's see, for storing the concatenation, I'm just taking A3. Now let's print A3. Yeah. So instead of, okay. So while before printing, I'm just assigning one new variable to store this concatenation. That is A3. A3 equals to np dot concatenate of A1 comma 8. So if I miss one parenthesis, let's see what is the difference. So if you so don't forget to pass parenthesis, because the inbuilt method, it will takes like two parentheses. So in the single parenthesis, again you need to pass again one more parenthesis. Inside that only you can specify the word arrays. Then only it will not raise an error. Now you can see that two arrays should be concatenated. The two arrays should be concatenated, and the result is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Like this, you can concatenate single dimension arrays. Now let's see how to concatenate two-dimension arrays. So for that, I'm just copying the previous context and change it. B1 and B2. So here you need to mention again one square bracket because it is a two-dimension array. Four, five, six. Eight, nine, 10. And for storing result, I'm just taking B3 is my variable and B1 comma B2. So these arrays can be concatenated defaultly like row wise. So we are not mentioning that this should be defaultly concatenated like row wise 1 2 3 comma 4 5 6 and 5 6 7 comma 8 9. But sometimes if you want to mention it like a column wise also, you can mention it while concatenating. You can pass the axis. So defaultly the axis should be 0. So if I pass axis equals to 1, so defaultly axis equals to 1. Let's see, axis equals to 1. So if you pass x equals to 1 means it will generate like a row wise 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. So the entire first row should be like a one row and the second row second array should be like in the second row. But if you don't mention anything, that should be defaultly generated like one by one, like column wise. Every array, every list, every elements, every particular array should be generated like a single array. So this is for generating row wise concatenation. Okay, if you don't mention anything, it will defaultly concatenated with respect to column. Defaultly x equals to 0. So x equals to 0 is point out that it generates like column wise. Every row should be generated like a row. With respect to that, columns can be formed. And also we have some other methods to join an array, that is h tags and v tags. So if you want to join your array like a horizontal way, you can use h tag. And if you want to concatenate your array like vertical, you can use v stack. Let's see that also. So we have already generated a1 and a2, right? We have a1 like 1 2 3 and a2 is like 5 6 7. Let's apply this v stack and h stack with respect to this a1 a2 arrays only instead of creating new. So I'm just using np dot h stack. So h stack is nothing but we are going to concatenating with like horizontal. So in that it will take the two kind of arrays and you need to specify them along with a one more parenthesis inside that. Here I'm mentioning a1 comma a2. So it will concatenate it like horizontal. So it will generate in a single row. So if you mention in a two-dimension arrays, so the two-dimension arrays we have in the B1 and B2. Now you can see everything can be generated like a horizontal because we are mentioning H stack. Rows can be converted like a horizontals. You can use any kind of arrays that you want. So I'm just mentioning both single dimension and two dimension. So in the B1, B2 we have two dimension and A1, A2 we have only one dimension. And let's see vertical stack as well. So for vertical stack we have V stack method. So there it will generate like column wise. So you can join the arrays like concatenate method or else H stack or V stack. So you can observe the changes. So when you use V stack means it will defaultly generated like a row wise vertical. vertical means it will generate like a column wise result. Axis equals to 0. The axis equals to 0 and VStack is similar. And for the single dimension also you can use directly like VStack, np.vstack of a1 comma a2. Then it will generate like a column wise. Like this you can concatenate your arrays, or you can join your arrays at any time with the help of concatenate method or else stack methods. So in the concatenation you can use axis equals to 0. So axis equals to 0 means it can concatenate with respect to columns. So defaultly if you won't mention anything, it will defaultly take axis equals to 1. So that is it can take row wise. So likewise, we have a method like vstack and hstack. Hstack is means it is similar to row wise, and vstack is nothing but it is similar to axis equals to 0. That means column wise. Vertically, it's going to be join the two arrays. Okay. Am I clear up to this, all of you? Okay, that's it about the numpys. We have only 7 more minutes. Show me B1 and B2. Okay, I have a B1 like this and B2 like this. It is a two-dimension arrays. Okay, instead of starting new topic like pandas, let's explore some more things in NumPy only. Yeah, I forgot to tell one like math functions in NumPy. Let's continue with NumPy math functions. So with the help of NumPy, we can do some kind of mathematical functions like to calculating the sine theta, cos theta, tan theta. All these values can be helpful, right? In our intermediate science or intermediate maths, we can see all these things. Okay, so here also the NumPy can helpful to calculate the sine of values, cos of values. So let's see how it is happen. So for that, we can take one array. Let's take, we have only A1. We have already A1, right? NumPy math functions is nothing but sine, cos, tan. Yeah, we can do matrix type multiplications also. For that, you can use one method like dot matrix. np dot matrix. Let's see, is that available? Yeah, np dot matrix to create a matrix type. So what it takes, let's see description. Shift to tab. So matrix can take data. The data may be integers or strings. It can take any kind of data. Let's see the examples here on the bottom. Yeah, it can take the data by separating a column. And you can pass data like strings also. It can take both type. If I take X. You need to specify in the format of string only. Otherwise, it will raise an invalid syntax. Then it is like a matrix. So out of this matrix, if you want to get only diagonal elements, let's see X dot. There is a method diagonal. Yeah, we have a diagonal method. Then it will generate only diagonal elements. We have a diagonal elements. Those are 1, 4. Okay. And if you want to transpose any kind of matrix, so we have a transpose method, right? So by using transpose, we can convert columns into rows into columns. So for that, we have also method, I think. So X dot transpose. Yeah, we have method transpose. Now we can see all the rows can be converted as a columns. Columns can be converted as a rows. And what else we have? Let's see the methods. So if you don't know about the methods, you just make it as x dot and then give tab, then it will tells you all the supported methods that can take. So there you can see a, all, any, argmax, argspot, base, clip complex, conjugate. You can perform conjugate also. Conjugate, cumulative sum product, dot, dump, spill, flags, flatten. So these are all the methods that can support. So based on our requirement, we just referred the document once and we can use it. We can use partition, product, ravel, real, repeat, reshape, resize, sort. Let's see sort once. So it's not generating anything. Why? So I think it's written none. Sort an array in place, refer numpy.sort, full documentation. It will sort the array. Return a sorted copy of an array, but we are not getting any result while sorting. Let's apply a new variable here, x1. And let's see x1 now. When I apply new variable also, it will not giving the result. Because it is already in the sorting order, I think so. That's why it will not give the any result. Because we are passing 1, 2, 3, 4. It is in the already sorting order. Yeah, how to getting the description? We already tell you, right? Just after creating the matrix, assign a new variable. After that, mention that variable and make a dot after the variable. And then you can get pass tab x dot, because I have in the x I have my matrix. And after that you can mention tab from your keyboard, then it will display all the supporting methods from that matrix. So that out of those you can use it whatever you want. We have so many methods in the numpy and as well as matrix. So matrix is different than numpy, somewhat different. Okay, so out of those you can mention any kind of methods. So these are all the matrix forms we have, and let's see that supported. Calculating the tan and all these things. X dot, if I mention sign, see it is not supported. For matrix, we cannot calculating the mathematical functions like sin and tan. So those are all belongs to numerical Python array. That means NumPy array. So for that, I'm just removing the cell. Now make it here. Let's take a new array like a1 equals to npy dot array of, let's take arrange 1, 100. Let's print a1. It will generate 1 to 100 values and 100 should not be included. And for this I want to calculate the sign values. So you can use a1 dot sign. So it's not getting, because the sign is inside the numpy. So you can use it like np dot sign. Now you will get sign of. Then you can mention the array. I have an array in the variable of a1, so that it will calculate the sign value for that a1 array. Why I'm getting only 1? So sign of 1, it's not be 1, and sign of 2 also it may be changed. Wait, yeah, it is a sign. So method. Yeah. Now we will get the sign values with respect to 1 to 100 values. Thank you. Thanks for your response. Okay, here the spelling mistake I'm done. Pardon me. So here, if you want to calculate the any sign values, you can use sign method. So inside the A1 array, I have totally 1 to 100 values. So if you want to calculate the sign value of this every value, then you can apply a sign method like np.sign of a1. It will calculate the sign value for the every element inside that a1 array. Likewise, you can calculate sign, cos, tan, and also you can calculate exponential values. np dot exponential exp of a1. So it will generate the exponential values. See, at any cost of time, if you don't understand anything, you just place the cursor after the method and give shift tab. Then it will tells you some kind of description, what it returns and what it takes and what are the arguments that can support. So when you pass exponential, it will returns calculate the exponential of all elements in the input array. So exponential values will be given with the help of exp method. Okay. And also, if you want to calculate any kind of logarithmic values for this array elements, you can use np dot log, and you can mention the array over here. It will generate the logarithmic value for every 1 to 99 values in the given A1 array. Okay, like this, you can use any kind of mathematical functions. You can calculate cos, tan as well. np dot cos of A1. It will generate cos value for the A1 elements. And np dot tan of A1. It will generate tan value. So now in the tan, you can observe it will generate some kind of exponential values. Exponential values of. So instead of reminding all those things, you can simply use the methods to getting the results. Okay. So these are all the methods we have mostly used in the mathematical functions. Yeah, that's it about the today's class. If you have any doubts, you can stay back in the meeting and you can ask me after it. And I'm going to explain it. And that's it about the today's session. Thank you, one and all. Thank you.